It all begins with an idea. But before you can reach this, you have to start with this. With the proper care and nurturing, you can go from these monstrosities to a truly monstrously successful household name. Making toys can be an absolutely brutal ordeal. It's a never-ending talent show with all competitors bringing all sorts of new inventions to the table. Every company wants to have their cake and eat it too, to shout the loudest and be heard by the most. For years, Buzz-Bee has been trailing behind the path that Nerf has paved into the world of toys, and they have yet to gather that same magnitude of buzz. Many Buzz-Bee blasters have come and gone, with a good chunk of them never leaving a strong mark on the toy blaster community. My eyes have almost always looked past their products until...
It has some really interesting features in it. First of all,
built-in walkie-talkies, a heat-seeking scope. My eyes were glued to the Covert Squad and Thermal Tracker blasters. Nerf has never tried their hand at these features before. Despite these blasters being out on the market for a while, they feel fresh to me because I'm observing them in the moment and not just scrolling past them in YouTube thumbnails. 2 bolt-action rifles, built-in walkie-talkies, earbuds, and darts, all for the retail price of $24.99. There's a headphone jack in this blaster. That is a sentence I never thought I would say. The Thermal Tracker is a bolt-action, magazine-fed blaster with a heat-seeking scope that allows you to detect your opponents. This also costs only $25. The pursuit of innovation often resembles a person trying to bash in a piñata with a 12-ounce steak marinating their eyes. Sometimes you'll hit the mark, sometimes you won't. And a lot of times, it doesn't take a lot for people to think you're an idiot. There's no doubt that Buzz-Bee was willing to play with fire to showcase the high-tech features presented in the Covert Squad and Thermal Tracker blasters. They slapped very affordable price tags on these products, but the question is whether it was worth the sacrifices they had to make for the quality. As a kid, I loved the Nerf pinpoint sight. The flashiness of it made it my go-to tactical attachment. It didn't do crap to help my aim, but who cared? It was cool. The heat-seeking scope makes me harken back to those days. You have this cool crosshair in the middle of this very linear sharp viewing window. Then you factor in the heat-seeking feature. You set the base temperature of the scope by pointing it at an object, and from now on, anytime you point the scope at something that has a higher temperature than that initial object, the green crosshairs will turn red. Holy crap, that's fascinating. Every time I put a part of my body in front of the scope, the crosshairs turned red. But then it was time for the legitbread stress test. I did everything I could think of to push this scope to its limits and see if it really lived up to its claims of detecting heat sources 60 feet away. This is where things got complicated. There's this super old lamp in my house and it generates so much heat you can literally use it as a hand warmer. When I pointed the scope at it, I expected to see red crosshairs, but it stayed blue. It's not supposed to be blue. And many times the crosshairs were blue even though it's not mentioned in the instruction manual. For example, Vancouver, 8 p.m, 21 degrees outside, light cloud coverage. Just like where I was standing outside, the scope was acting shady. It worked when I pointed it down at myself, but the minute I raised it, we got those unexpected frosty blue crosshairs. It did say in the instructions that the scope will not work in direct sunlight or hot environments, but I didn't think these conditions were extreme enough to make it fold. On the opposite end, there were countless times the scope detected heat in places that absolutely did not differ in temperature. If the scope is unsteady or the heat source is moving, you just get blinking Christmas lights of red and green through the viewing window. There are only a select few ideal conditions that the scope must operate under for it to be effective. It worked great with recognizing stationary heat sources up to around 25 feet away. Of course, the closer the source, the more responsive and accurate the detection was. I could never replicate that up to 60-foot range claim, and honestly the scope is so inconsistent that using it in a Nerf war would most likely distract you more than anything. You'd be better off literally just using your eyes and detecting movement of your opponent instead of using the scope for that. Just like Spider-Man Far From Home teamed up with United Airlines, I think Buzz-Bee has partnered with an airliner because these earbuds are literally the same ones you get on an airplane. This was not a good sign. So I plugged in the earbuds into both Covert Squad blasters and tested away. Like a walkie-talkie, you have to hold down a button and then start talking. There's a good chance you guessed it already, but the audio quality is not very good with these blasters. The minute you start talking into the speaker, the person on the receiving end will start hearing the audio
times 100. It's very blown out, very peaky. If someone is talking too far away from the speaker or too close, things start getting distorted and it becomes very hard to comprehend what the other person is saying. And it is a whole other kind of hell once the person talking starts running at the same time, because then the microphone starts picking up wind noise and static.
This means that any chance of using the walkie-talkies while moving or if it's windy is pretty much dissipated, making its practicality on the foam battlefield that much more limited.
But I have to say, the minute both people with the Covert Squad blasters are stationary and just talking into the speaker at a reasonable distance, you can still hear the person quite clearly despite the audio issues, and that's what makes it cool when it actually works.
I tried seeing if using another higher quality pair of earbuds would produce cleaner audio, but all it did was play it louder. And of course, there's no way to adjust the audio levels. It seemed like all hope was lost for these earbuds, until we stepped outside. I walked the distance of one house away from the other person. I could still hear them through the walkie-talkie, and they could still hear me. I walked another house away. It still worked. I walked another house away, and another. I did this until I was a whole block away, and then the signal finally began to cut out. The scale of how impressive this was not fully understood until I measured those distances on Google Maps. I realized we were easily 200 feet apart when the walkie-talkies still operated normally. I even pushed it past its advertised 300-foot range claim where it still operated with partial functionality. We did this test again, except one person stayed inside the house in a room on the second floor, while the other person was outside and went down the block. The signal cut out earlier than before, but going back to the distance tracking on Google Maps, the signal was traveling through multiple walls to the receiving end easily 160 feet to 260 feet away. Truly, this was a pleasant surprise. But is that enough? Shout out to these people for participating in the last Food for Thought. Answer this video's question using the hashtag and you might be featured in the next Food for Thought. There has to be substance and a plan behind an idea. No matter how good an idea is, bad execution will make any good idea bad. It all rides on the execution, and this is where Buzzbee is still working out the kinks. Neither the built-in walkie-talkies or the heat-seeking scope really blew me away. It didn't help that they installed the walkie-talkies into what are probably the most uncomfortable ergonomics I've ever encountered on a blaster. However, the point of this video is not to leave a sour taste in your mouth. There's more than what's been said so far. In our favorite stories, people always root for the little guys, the ones counted out, and the ones who turn nothing into something. And it's no different in the world of business. I will always love Nerf, and I will always appreciate the underdogs searching for their own innovations in different ways. To be a trailblazer is to see what has yet to come into existence, and I see that in Buzzbee's Covert Squad and Thermal Tracker blasters. What their features show us is a great proof of concept. This is them saying, yes, this is possible. Quality and price are delicately balanced on a razor blade, and it was obvious the level of quality had to be compromised to reach their desired price points. No one is immune to the quality to price balance, including Nerf. The 2018 Nerf rival Prometheus is one of the most hardcore blasters ever created, with a 200 round capacity and 8 round per second rate of fire. It's impossible to fire this blaster and not have it induce a smile on your face. However, its high-tech quality features made it the most expensive rival blaster ever made, at least so far. The Nerf Blaster Scooter had a different problem. I'm sure it's a fun idea to propose in a meeting room at first, but then Hasbro has to sell the rights of the Nerf name to a different company, so it's not even Nerf making it. It sucks as a blaster, it sucks as a scooter, and you're left with an impractical retail price on a blaster scooter that does not serve to deliver its promises to the consumer. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the 2018 Nerf Chrono Barrel managed to pack in high-tech stuff that could have cost 2 to 5 times more than what they retailed it for. The barrel has a built-in chronograph that tells you the velocity of the darts you fire, plus a dart counter feature. I could probably bore you to death with a valedictorian speech about how great this attachment is. This is the epitome of a good idea paired with good execution. The way Nerf and Buzzbee approach innovation are in many ways foils of each other. For the most part, Nerf will put new, high-quality innovations on store shelves without much worry about keeping retail prices affordable, most likely because they've built themselves as a trustworthy household toy name, and that in itself will do most of the heavy lifting to rake in the revenue. Buzz-Bee, a lesser known brand, are carving their way into the market differently by releasing innovations prioritizing affordability over quality. Let's reroute back to these blasters. Ignoring the walkie-talkies and the heat-seeking scope for a second, I've yet to mention that the thermal tracker's bolt action is fun. You can see the dart being chambered, which is kinda cool. The 10 dart magazine is compatible with Nerf blasters. The built-in stock is incredibly solid. Both blasters appear to get those standard Nerf ranges. They're compatible with other brands of darts. Seriously, I gotta give them a hand for stuffing a lot of great things into products that cost 25 bucks each. These blasters and their features are far from perfect. I could easily fill the screen with things Buzz-Bee could improve, but man, if my friends and I had these products when we were still kids, the experience of using them would probably be such a fond memory that it would stick with me today. When the heat-seeking scope works, it toys with your curiosity. It provides more variety in play than most toy scopes on the market. Even as a grown-ass adult, using the Covert Squad blaster as a walkie-talkie was such a wild concept that it sparked a little giddiness in my inner child. These products are best in the hands of the younger demographic, and that's where its value can really be seen. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the toy blaster market is a never-ending talent show, and how boring would it be if the same person took home the title every single time? Every company has its highs and lows, and even though Buzz-Bee hasn't unlocked total, overwhelming success, the Thermal Tracker and Covert Squad have got me rooting for them to continue the pursuit of innovation. Thank you to Buzz-Bee for sending me these blasters to make this video possible. Their links are on the screen and in the description below. If you like this style of video, you'll like the ones on the screen as well. Subscribe for more Nerf content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.